Hello, everybody, and welcome to What's Up Wednesday. I'm your host, Jared Gucci, and I'm also the founder of WPFixit.com. Really excited to bring a very relevant topic to you today about WordPress security and keeping your WordPress safe and secure from hackers and the mess online that we encounter often when dealing with WordPress. So I do want to tell you the three things that I'm actually going to cover during this presentation. The first thing is going to be how WordPress actually gets hacked, the types of hackers that execute these hacks, and how to prevent it so you can make sure that your website is always running smoothly and safe and secure. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Let me just make sure we can get you full screen here. Okay. All right, so you've probably seen some of these headlines in the past. You know, reports of thousands or even millions of websites hacked with WordPress mentioned predominantly. You know, it's really, when you look at stuff like this, it's pretty staggering, and your first reaction is WordPress is a mess. But that is not the case. Truth is, WordPress hardly ever gets hacked or has any weak points. It is a symptom, not a cause. A runny nose does not cause your cold. It's a symptom. Likewise, a hacked WordPress site does not mean that WordPress caused the site to get hacked. The infection often starts somewhere else. And in the vast majority of cases, like I said here, attackers get in some other way. And then once they're in the system, they go looking for WordPress installs and vulnerability that will allow them more access to do some more damage. It's so important to understand that WordPress by itself, with no plugins or no third-party themes, is safe and secure. And this is an absolute fact. And WordPress was developed that way. You know, the people that write and contribute to the core of WordPress do have security in mind first and foremost, because we are talking about the World Wide Web. But a WordPress installation with no third-party plugins or no third-party themes is safe and secure. So often the weak points are third-party plugins and themes for WordPress. TimTum library is a famous example. This library is very popular for allowing you to manipulate images such as crop, rotate, resize, etc. right in the browser on the fly. Many WordPress themes and plugins are integrated with this library. And when the TimTum security weakness was discovered by hackers, many WordPress sites were affected and were in fact hacked. WordPress itself was not the problem in this situation. Sites which did not have plugins or themes that used TimTum remained safe because WordPress core was not the weak point. TimTum has since been fixed, but it suffered a major black eye to how many sites wound up being affected because of its security loopholes. Oh, went too far here. Let's go back. Okay. The other thing is Uploadify is another jQuery plugin which had security weaknesses and affected many plugins and themes as well. And that has since been fixed. So many people have their sites on shared hosting, and this is actually a really important slide to talk about because, again, we're kind of isolating why WordPress gets hacked. And hosting is a big part of the problem. Now, if you are not on a dedicated server or what's called a VPS, virtual private server, then you are most likely on shared hosting. That means that there are other users running websites and other services on the same server as you. They are normally segregated out so that users can't see each other. That offers some protection, but ultimately these users are still sharing some resources at the operating system level. But even if you are on a totally dedicated server where nobody else has access to the operating system, What about other WordPress users? If you have a multi-author site, or if you are running multi-site, any situation pretty much where other users can log into WordPress and see the dashboard, you are potentially at risk for some security issues. A client of mine runs a small business, and over the years they have hired part-time employees to help out. One problem they had is that some people just didn't follow through with all the things they were supposed to do. You might tell them that during slow times they're not supposed to use the point-of-sale computers for surfing websites. But when the owners are away and they aren't taking care of customers, that's exactly what some of the employees would do. And while they aren't trying to be problematic, they also aren't the ones who will have to deal with the cleanup if those computers become infected with a virus. Because they are not the ones who invested their savings into the business, they will probably never care as much about the business and its assets as the owners do. The same is for your website. Whether you use a site for e-commerce or a brochure business site or just for a hobby, it's unlikely that any other user of your site is going to care as much about it as you do. Be selective in who you give access to and what level of access they have. And there are many plugins out there that can limit access control to a multi-author site. But it is a security issue having a login to a dashboard. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of hackers and some of the things that they do to get into your site. So hackers often share their knowledge of security holes with other hackers. In those circles, there are big bragging rights, for sure. And being the first to discover such a hole in a piece of software is a huge compliment in these circles. In InfoSec circles, there are white hat and black hat hackers. The white hats discover security holes either as a part of their job as security consultants or as a hobby. But when they find something, they typically send a security report to the owners of the software and give them a window of time to create and release a fix before making the knowledge public. The black hat hackers, on the other hand, just start using the security hole to break into systems. And at some point, they share information about the holes with others. Once a new security hole becomes known, there's usually a spurt of activity in the community of black hat hackers as more and more begin testing the hack against servers and making it easier. One common target, once a common target gets into a system to obtain access to account passwords, it's pretty much too late at that point. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how to prevent these things. But in most cases, passwords are encrypted, okay, or hashed to protect passwords from this type of unauthorized access. You might type a password in as synchronicity, and please don't use that one. But in the password database, it will be encrypted and stored as an alphanumerical and character string that is quite long and complicated. To match this up to the original password, a hacker can run a program that will try every combination of letters, numbers, and symbols, encrypting each combination, looking for a match. A word like synchronicity is easy to crack because it appears in the dictionary. Password crackers keep lists of words like this pre-encrypted with a variety of password hashing algorithms and can find matches for them extremely quickly. Also, while we're talking about password hacking, one of the worst things that you can do is set a username in your WordPress site to admin. And this is common knowledge among many developers and even weekend warriors, but you do not want to use the username admin. Again, there are two things you need to log into a WordPress website. It is a username and a password. The majority of people out there are still using the username admin, so it's giving hackers half of that equation. Okay, network scanners. This is another way that hackers can get into your site. Network scanners will monitor network activity and can nab unencrypted passwords right out of the network packets. Firesheep was an extension created for a Firefox web browser to demonstrate just how easy this could be in some cases. It would monitor the network you were connected to, watching for others to log in insecurely to services like Facebook, Twitter, and such. It would then present you with a button in your browser that would let you simply click to log in as that other person. It was scary how well it worked. Since that time, Facebook, Twitter, and most other services started enforcing SSL for all logins, which makes this sort of networking sniffing tool impractical and unable to complete. So you will see on most of the social networks that the URL will go from HTTP to HTTPS, which provides a secure login portal for that username and password. And you will see on some WordPress websites that this is also being used as well. But in many cases, Wi-Fi networks protect themselves by turning on a network level encryption like WEP or WPA. These provide protection from the ability of outsiders to inspect the data that travels between your computer and the wireless internet router. However, there turned out to be a weakness in the WEP encryption, which were discovered through complex mathematical analysis, which I have no idea how to explain. But using these weaknesses can allow a hacker to break the WEP protection. WPA has also been cracked and can be broken with about 10 to 15 minutes of monitoring. To best protect, as far as my knowledge, WPA2 is still the safest. If your Wi-Fi router and client devices support it, I highly recommend that you enable it. And I think a lot of the new routers are using that as the default encryption practice. So there are also some other automated tools out there that are often associated with a lower grade of hackers known as the script kiddies. Now, these tools essentially keep a database of known vulnerabilities and systematically try to apply them against a site or a list of many sites. It's all completely auto-run. If you see a long series of strange entries in your web server error logs, can't talk this morning, and access logs trying to reach pages like strange URLs that don't even exist on your site, it is almost certain that one of these scanners is looking for a hole in your server. They just blindly try every trick they know, hoping that one of them will match up with the type of server platform you are using. And the last one here is something called a rootkit. And in many cases, if a hacker does find a way into your server, they will install what's called a rootkit. This is actually what I see most commonly when WordPress websites are hacked. But these tools attempt to leverage some lower level of access on the system, exploit other vulnerabilities to gain higher levels of access, and then hide their presence on the server completely. They will use all sorts of tricks to hide their activity. Hidden directories and files, file names with strange binary characters, modifying system commands so others do not see their processes running, etc. Rootkits can be quite sophisticated, and hackers using them can go undetected for months, all while using your system as a cog in a network of machines turned to their own purposes. And a lot of times you will see that it will infect all of the index.phps in several locations on your servers. It may start at the wp-config.php file and then infect into all of the index.php files throughout the server, and in some cases hide those files or make them unviewable via FTP. So those rootkits are actually a huge mess because it sometimes is finding a needle in a haystack. So these are the type of hackers that exist and how they get in. But now let's talk about how we can prevent these things from happening. Because again, the main thing to remember is WordPress as a core is completely safe and secure. It's all that extra, uh, belly fat, I like to call it, that we install into our sites to add functionality that make it vulnerable for security hacks. But we can prevent it for sure. So these are some must-dos. Okay, you got to keep your WordPress core plugins and themes up to date. When you log into your WordPress administration dashboard, of course, it will show you these updates and when they are available. It is absolutely pertinent that you complete these updates. And these updates exist for a reason. You will see that updates are functionality based only. But when there is a WordPress core update, it is very rare that it does not include some type of security bug fix. So make sure that your WordPress core is always up to date, and same thing goes with plugins and themes. They will also include security bug fixes as well. And you can read the details of all of these updates, which we're going to talk about a little bit as well. You will practically never break anything on your site by upgrading the WordPress core between minor versions, and these are the sub-release versions. For example, from 3.9.1 to 3.9.2, minor releases are only for bug fixes and will never contain any major new features. Major releases, however, say from 3.9 to 4, are the ones that contain new features and possibly new bugs. Some people like to wait a couple weeks after the new major release before upgrading. For example, not necessarily upgrading when the major release comes, but when the first sub-release of the major release comes. So if 3.4 comes out, or excuse me, 3.10 comes out, you may want to wait until 3.10.1 before you update from your 3.9.2. And this just allows for more, actually, the more adventurous users like to update immediately, and if you are running a good backup system, if there are any problems, you can revert. But the major releases are usually where you will see the huge problems and crash sites and conflicts and things like that. When plugins and themes update, it's always best to read the release notes and see if you actually need to upgrade them immediately. In most cases, you will want to. Of course, if they involve any added functionality that you really want to use, or they do cover some security bug fixes, you do want to update those. Sometimes you might see something, though, that isn't crucial, like they've added a new translation to Estonia language. In this case, you might be able to just leave it and wait for the next upgrade, unless you have a lot of users that speak Estonia. But read the release notes. But definitely with your WordPress core updates, it is always a best practice to get those updated. And again, if you're running a good backup system, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you can always restore if there's any issues. Okay, so what are some other things to do to be safe and secure with WordPress? If you have any old plugins or themes that you do not use anymore, you may have installed several themes when you first started out, looked at them, finally found one you liked, and just never got rid of the old ones that you tried. Or you switched from the Awesome Tweets plugin to the Super Awesome Tweets plugin, and the old one is still hanging around, deactivated. Or you have a plugin that's active, but you just never use it. You got to get rid of them. And two reasons, actually. We'll go a little bit off topic here. For the reasons of this topic, they can cause security issues. Okay, just because it's deactivated doesn't mean that there's something within the files of that plugin or theme that can open up a security loophole and allow hackers into your server. Okay, and the other reason is these deactivated plugins and themes can run some processes that are draining your server resources. So if you're not using it, get rid of it. You don't need it. Okay. If a plugin or a theme was written without security in mind, direct access like this could bypass WordPress and what it thinks is active or inactive. So if you're not using it, get rid of it. Delete it for sure. Okay, so let's talk about some security plugins that can help prevent hackers and keeping your WordPress site safe and secure. So the Hotfix plugin is a really cool plugin that I recommend to many people. It's maintained by some of the top WordPress developers and a lot of the core contributors. It attempts to give you bug fixes that might have been found but not included in the official release yet. It is also safe to have this plugin active on your sites. So, you know, before those bug fixes actually get included in the releases and you're notified about them, this plugin will give you those bug fixes first. Next plugin here is Lock-in Lockdown, and there's a lot of plugins that do this. This is the one I recommend. And what it will do is it will watch for brute force login attempts and block a client after too many failed login attempts. And your brute force login attempts are some of those automated tools that we talked about earlier that a hacker will, you know, put a login URL, which usually is wp-login.php or wp-admin, and they will run it through a program that will, you know, try many variations of usernames and passwords. So Login Lockdown, very simple one that will save you from those brute force logins. Next one here is Better WP Security. So what I like about this plugin, and again, these are just all my recommendations from personal use, is that they offer a very easy one-click setup to get your site safe and secure instantly. They do have many advanced features, and you can tweak their one-click setup to your liking. But the one-click setup is great for some of you developers out there that just want to get something really safe and secure for your client sites and not spend a lot of time on it. The next one here is WordFence. I'm assuming that there's a lot of people listening to this that have had experience with WordFence. And the thing I like about it the best is it has the absolute baddest ass file scanner that I've seen for free to isolate harmful files within your WordPress install and on the server. So WordFence is awesome for running a file scan. The next one here is Bulletproof Security. Now, Bulletproof Security is a bit different than the ones I've mentioned above because it modifies your .ht access file to block certain types of access attempts at the web server level before WordPress can even try to handle the request. Now, this is a plugin for the more advanced developer. I have seen and you know been to the rescue for many sites where they've used this plugin and they get the white screen of death and their website won't load, and because again it is modifying your .ht access file. So this is for the more advanced user, but it is a great plugin. Okay, the next one here is the all-in-one security, and this is kind of a newer plugin in the WordPress community. But what I really like about this is they have a dashboard gauge that will rate the level of security you have on your site and show you how to improve it. This particular plugin does take a little bit of time to set up and go through and adjust security levels. They do not have a one-click hardening, but I do really like that dashboard gauge that they have. And then the last one here is this is a debatable plugin, but I had to put it in this presentation because I do stand behind it. Security offers a security auditing and cleanup services plugin that you can put into your WordPress site, and they've made a lot of improvements just in the past few months to this plugin. They do offer a one-click hardening button in this plugin that does some really cool, you know, behind-the-scenes server hardening to make sure your website is safe and secure. And there also is a built-in scanner that will tell you if your website is infected with malware. So I do like security, but you know, I think there's been a lot of mess with security in WordPress over the years. I can tell you from personal experience that WPFixit.com a year ago was actually blacklisted through security on error. It was actually an error on their part, and it was quite a process to get that error removed. And but they have made a lot of adjustments with their plugin and their system, so I still stand behind them. You know, errors happen, growing pains, and it is a good plugin. So let's sum this all up before we close out here. Again, going back to WordPress as a core is a safe and secure platform as long as there's no third-party plugins or themes installed. So the absolute basics that you should have set in place to make sure your WordPress site is safe and secure is you need a good backup system. The backup system I love to recommend to everybody is Updraft Plus. It is a free system, and the reason I like to recommend this one is because no matter the size of your site, how many files you have in your uploads folder, this plugin will not time out, and it has a really cool system of kind of breaking up the zip files and then putting them back together when you need to download your backup. So having a good backup system in place is definitely step one, so when there are issues, you can restore. A good hosting solution. You know, we talked about shared hosting. There are other users and other sites that are on the same server as you and sharing resources, and if they have security loopholes, those security loopholes could infect your site. So having a good host that monitors that stuff and isolates these incidents when they happen before they infect your site is definitely a good solution. Put a little recommendation in there. SiteGround have about over 400 sites actually with them. Never ever had a hacked site on their servers. There has been times where they've isolated vulnerable files that are prone for attack, but I really like their process of keeping shared hosting sites secure. Third point here on the basics is make sure you are 100% up to date. We talked about this. Update WordPress core, update your plugins, and update your themes. Okay, those updates are important, and make sure that you are completing them. Okay, remove any unused plugins and themes. Again, you know, this has a twofold benefit. The first is to make sure that those unused plugins and themes are not potential to security risk, and also they're not draining server resources, so your website can stay speedy. And then the last one here, you know, we talked about the admin user name. Do not use that. Absolutely do not use that. If you need help changing that in your database, you can reach out to me. I'll definitely walk you through that process, but do not use the admin username. And then strong passwords. If you simply Google password creator, you can find several sites online that will help you create strings of password that make it very difficult for hackers to get into. And then if you want to take your security practices to the next level, there are some things that you can do with .ht access rules, and I'd love to have an offline conversation with anybody about that. But there's some really cool tricks that you can put into your .ht access file, which is in the root directory of your server, to keep those hackers away from your site. We talked about it doing an SSL login page. So again, it's encrypting the connection of your login page, which would be a URL that has HTTPS versus HTTP, and there is some cost involved in that. But again, if you're running a serious website and you want to keep these hackers away from it, these little things are minor investments to the value of your success. Use off-server solutions for forms. This is actually a huge missed opportunity because a lot of infections in WordPress and a lot of hacks come from the forms, and these forms can be comment forms, or they can be, you know, lead capture forms. But I've seen a lot of websites hacked using plugins like Gravity Forms, because these forms sit on your pages on the server, access the database for the site, and these forms can be used to inject malware and scripts that can infect your server. So there's a lot of form providers that use off-server solutions. One for recommendation that is free, actually up to a certain point, that I love to recommend is jotform.com, and all these servers are run somewhere else, and then they simply embed into your page through an iframe or some script calls. But the off-server form solutions can be really good. Security plugins on the site. You know, we went through some plugins. your site does not absolutely have to run a security plugin. These plugins make it easy for you to quickly set up some security options to make the site safer and more secure, but it is not mandatory to make sure that you can keep these hackers away from your stuff. And then the last thing here is a real simple one, is including a CAPTCHA form on your comment and login, registration, anywhere where a form is being filled out and that form resides on your server and has access to your database. Putting a CAPTCHA form is going to help limit using some of those automated tools that we talked about earlier, where these hackers just run your website through a program and it looks for all the security loopholes. And definitely comment forms, login forms, and registration forms are huge places where these hackers can get in. So I hope that this was helpful, and I really want to encourage anybody that has any questions to reach out to me. You can do that on Twitter, and the handle is WPFixItFast. We also have a Facebook page, WPFixit, and you can reach out to me personally, Jarrett Gucci. You can pretty much find me anywhere. I think I'm the only one on Facebook and the only one in Google. So I look forward to answering any questions that you have on this topic, and I hope it was helpful, and I encourage you all to go out there and secure your WordPress website. Take care. See you next week.